pushed us a little behind, and John Carney's gonna say the prayer for us tonight.
Almighty God, we thank you for this opportunity to come together to discuss the business of the county. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. We ask that you would be with this meeting, and may it be a time of progress and enlightenment. And Lord, we ask that you would be with all of those who lead our nation and our state and the world. All these things we ask in your almighty name. Amen.
Okay, a roll call. Everyone's here except Commissioner Epperson, and I understand she's on the way, so I'm sure she'll come in. Okay, next is approval of agenda, which I think we've got here. Is there any public comments on down? Minutes approval of the January 21st, 2025 Rules Legislative Meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
I do have one correction. There's a mistake in there. If I get it back, it was the referral. Gracious me, we've got a lot of stuff here. It's on toward the back. It's when I quoted Tennessee Code Annotated 5-21-. It should be 105 instead of it's that Tennessee Code Annotated. The last three numbers are 105. So that needs to be corrected. Any other corrections? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, public comment period. I think the county mayor said he didn't see anything outside. No one had contacted him. Does anybody else want to speak this time? Okay, being none, we'll go on to the rest of the agenda. The second item is consideration of placing the February 11th, 2025 Commission minutes on the March 11th, 2025 County Commission agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The next item is consideration of placing the notary applicants on the March 11th, 2025 County Commission agenda as requested by County Clerk Donna Thomas.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Report, which was in our packet. I believe there were 41 veterans that visited. 62 veterans were transported to the VA hospitals. And we have Director Steele.
Nothing to add, sir.
Director.
Thank you, ma'am.
Excellent. Okay, any other questions? Any other discussion? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the other two reports are for our information only. Again, the community clinic, they served 78 patients on the medical side in January, and the dental side, dental report for January was 48 patients treated. Is there any questions or any comments concerning the community clinic? Motion to approve? Okay, we don't need one. Okay, it's for our own information only. Okay, we do, Ag Center, I thought I saw some minutes, Commissioner Anderson.
No, not much to update on you. We did put something in out there where Helen can control the heat with her phone. So I go in this board meeting. Michael Simons looks at me. He said, what is the temperature in here? So I said it to Helen. I said, why is it so hot in here? And she says, Mr. Bill, you told me to make sure them pipes didn't freeze, which she's right. But it didn't need to be that hot to keep them pipes from freezing. But it is nice that we got that app on there where she controls on her phone. So that's helped. And I want to remind everybody our big farm equipment sale. It's this weekend with the tractors and all that good stuff. And it starts this weekend. That's one of the biggest farm equipment sales in Middle Tennessee.
What time's it start? When?
Starts, I
Saturday?
think, at 9 on Saturday. I
9
believe
on
9's
Saturday.
right. I may be wrong on the time, but I know it starts on Saturday. And they'll start rolling in with all the equipment about Thursday. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got everything running. She starts it every 30 days, and I'll remind her, hey, you started just to make sure. Because if you let something sit, it won't run, as you all well know, especially a tractor, but we're good on that. And he'll take care of us on that. So we'll be fine on that one. I appreciate it. We're going to surplus that tractor, get that done. But if anybody gets a chance just to come out this equipment sale, it is a big deal. And it brings a lot of people into our hotels, believe it or not. There's no telling how many people from out of town come to Shelbyville and Bedford County just for this sale. So I know several hotels fill up from it. So it's good for everybody. It's a good place to pick up farm equipment you might not find somewhere else, like box blades and stuff like that. It's hard to come up with. It's a pretty good sale. And the February one's actually better than the November one. So I encourage everybody to come out to that.
But how many pieces you think will be auctioned?
Oh, it's a bunch.
Is it 1 day or 2 days?
It's usually 2 days, and it may start on Friday. I may be wrong, but I think the big stuff's on Saturday. It may
One
start
day.
actually on Friday, but it's just one, 2 sales.
Okay, so they'll have 2 auctioneers working 2 different things.
But it's a big deal.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Okay, any questions concerning the ag report or any for Commissioner Anderson? Okay, being none, we'll go on to new business. I do have some other business we'll get to after we go through the new business. Number 7 is rezoning. As the Tyrone J. Rhodes is seeking to have 2601 Highway 64 West, map 085, parcel 032, rezoned from A1, which is agricultural forestry, to C1, which is rural center district. It was sent with a favorable recommendation from the planning commission. Does anybody have any questions? Well, let's see, Director Chris White's here.
I wouldn't mind if the director would explain to everybody what a rural center district is, if you wouldn't mind.
No, absolutely.
Rural Center District is just the name. It's what we call our C1 district, which is our light commercial district that is applicable to the rural areas of the county, and what we call crossroad communities. And this particular case, this is actually involving the old wheel market.
Oh, okay, I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
So this could be a market or a store.
We believe they want to open it up as a market. Sometimes people tell us one thing and
Oh, sure.
do something else, and sometimes situations change and they do something different. Sometimes it's not, they're not trying to deceive us. It's just that you have to know when you vote, when you approve possibility, it's always a possibility. It's tiny. It's less than an acre. It's just one of those non-conforming grandfathered lots of record that has always been used for, in my time, it's always been used, been here 30-something years. It's always been a commercial market until it closed about, a decade ago or so.
Did the planning commission have any objections to it? Were there any concerns they had?
We didn't have any objections to it.
Just as a market, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember us talking about it now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion or questions? What's,
I think you got a few more. I'll just stand here.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll
you
have
might as
more.
well. What's,
Move to approve in a second.
okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. With recommendation. Okay, the next item is rezoning. It's James and Christy Warner are seeking to have Montgomery Road, map 085, parcel 001.03, rezoned from A1, which is agricultural forestry, to R1, which is suburban residential district, sent with an unfavorable recommendation, 8 in favor, and 1 in absence, and by the planning commission. definition.
Now, how could you have a nation which is it's a higher density residential zoning district, higher density than the A1 district. And in that district, you're supposed to be, same thing, close proximity to an urban growth boundary because of the high density. So that's why they gave it an unfavorable.
And this falls in also to the thing of not 1 acre per house, the rule that we have. They're wanting to put maybe 2 or 3 per acre in.
The R1 classification would allow you to reduce the lot size to 30,000 square feet
Okay.
per lot, which is an acre is 43,560 square feet. So it's about 3/4 of an acre is what it would allow it to do. And this is actually right where the Wheel Market is, just past the Wheel Market. If you turn left, it's a pretty sizable piece of land that fronts Whitaker and fronts 64 West. So it's pretty
How
far
many-
out.
how
It's
many-
almost Palmetto.
How many acres?
I could look, see my notes if you want
Oh,
to.
it's
but it's-
okay. No,
It's,
I-
it's over 100 acres. I
It's
know
nearly
that.
200, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
It's a
sizable.
big, okay.
Mhm.
No, I recommend both.
That's the way it's come to us.
That's the way it came to us.
Yeah.
I make a motion unfavorable, send it to commission unfavorable.
That's the way it is. Okay, is there a motion and a second?
I got the motion.
Second.
Okay, is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. The next item is a zoning amendment resolution. It was in the packet to amend Article 2, Section 2, Section 3.390, temporary use regulations, and Article 7, Section 7.020, which is definitions of the Bedford County zoning resolution, version 11.32. It was sent with a favorable recommendation after a year of discussion, revisions, and amendments. Okay, it's open, floor's open. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'll be happy to explain it. I think we talked about this maybe last month or the month before, because this has been going back and forth now for a long time. But these are new regulations that deal with people buying like mini barns at Lowe's and converting them to residences, things that fall outside of our building code requirements for a residential dwelling. They also involve it'd be the same thing like for RVs. So it provides us some zoning regulations for that we can enforce. It gives us some jurisdiction on the use of RVs as permanent dwellings and these little barns. And then their definitions are going to be things that where we define these words, RVs, or I think one of them is ready removables, which is something that would be like if you had a trailer, a double wide trailer that we use for a school classroom that doesn't have restrooms in it, or it was never designed to be used as a residence, where people will buy those sometimes and move into them as houses, and they're not designed to be used for a residence. And so they end up kind of trying to, because they're not designed to be lived in, they'll end up doing some things that would cause septic to be effluents to be emptied onto the ground and things like that. They don't have, they're just not designed to be used that way. So anyway, these regulations do those two things. And the main reason why we went to this is because technically speaking, these types of uses have never been legally allowed, but the only person who had jurisdiction on it would have been the building codes department. And the building codes department basically has one remedy, and that remedy is to call Duck River and have the power shut off, which is not an ideal situation if you have a baby in the house or if you have elderly people who depend on medical devices and those kind of things. So we just felt like the zoning office really ought to sort of take control of this thing, get us something, an ordinance that we can get passed where we would have the jurisdiction of it, because we have the ability to work with these people and transition them out over a period of time. We can do this much with a lot more flexibility than the codes department can do it. So that's the reason why we went down this road.
A question I have kind of gives me a little bit of heartburn is if a man owns a camper and he owns a piece of property and he wants to live in the camper, or let's go through, I'm going to just run through the reasons people would live in a camper. Probably no one wants to, but construction of a home. A lot of people I know have lived in campers for a little while the building of their house, but especially if it's on a big farm, does that really matter? Business is what I'm getting to. I mean, because if you own the camper, you own the property, you pay taxes on the property, and now we're telling you can't stay in it over 30 days, or I guess we could get a permit for 6 months. I read that too. The other argument, and I'll just go ahead and get it out so you can get this one too, is I've had a couple of constituents tell me due to the high cost of rent, they've had their kids or college kids live in the camper beside the house to teach them a thing or two because of rent, for one, or an elderly parent where one of the parents passed away and it gave them an option there. Does this take away from that?
Well, the answer would be yes and no. It would be depending on the situation. First of all, the first situation I took note of was the situation where you have a house under construction. There's actual a provision in there for that. So it's actually where we can issue a temporary zoning permit through our office that allows a person to use it while their house is being constructed. And if for some reason, there's also some provisions in it as well for if for some reason somebody were to get a permit to begin a house and for something happened and the construction was delayed, they can renew that permit twice. And so it gives us the ability to be flexible with that for somebody that's trying to build a house or whatever. And because a lot of times people will put a house up for sale and they'll think, well, when, I'll move, well, then the house just sells instantly and they have no options. And so we try to work with people when it comes to situations like that. The thing about if you have an elderly adult, there's in this same set of rules, or maybe it's the one we did last month, but anyway, we have provisions for temporary medical situation where a doctor can sign off and say this person needs to be looked after, by a family member, and you can actually move like a house trailer, a single wide house trailer, or something that does pass a residential code. And there's a lot of reasons why you want them to live. You really care about these people. You really want them to live in something that's designed to be lived in.
I agree.
And a lot of times with these RVs, it's really more of a danger to an elderly person to live in one than it would be if they just lived in something that had a set of stairs that was built to code and a landing and all these things where they can get in and out of it safely.
What about with a student, though, in a situation? And I mean, this is a problem we've got with our young people. They're all living at home with their parents because we can't afford to rent. I mean, that's the bottom line for these young folks. There's nowhere to go. And I have seen where a couple of people reached out to me that, well, they're living in my camper. They go to school, they do whatever. What about in that situation?
So again, it's not, like I said, it's a yes and a no.
Right.
The yin and the yang. It's not going to solve everybody's problem. But again, living in an RV right now is already against the building code that you guys have adopted. So what we're wanting to try to do is, if we're going to regulate it, we just want to regulate it in a more humane manner is what we want to do.
Okay. Commissioner Hooker.
Well, technically, if they're doing that, it's already not okay. It's already not allowed. So, right. So what this would do is just take it out of the codes department's hands and put it in our hands. And the one good thing about it is, at least they'll be working with somebody who can, over a period of time, we can transition them out of these illegal uses and that sort of stuff. Whereas it's not going to be a cold turkey kind of thing.
All right. My other concern would be, as I'm reviewing your all's minutes in the planning commission about this RV park. Here's what concerns me. You can't live on an RV on your property, but you can have an RV park potentially. And to me, there's something here just doesn't pass the smell test to me, that you can't live in an RV on your own land, but you can have a park full of them. Can you explain that one to me?
Yeah, and that'll be the next item, if you want to go ahead and jump to it. Yeah, I mean, we do have provisions for RV parks, and of course, there's a lot of regulations for an RV park, one of which is you're not supposed to be able to stay in the RV park for more than 30 days. So it's not a permanent dwelling, it's a temporary dwelling. And RVs are designed to be temporary dwellings, which is exactly why you have RV parks, because they're just for temporary uses. And so, whereas you put an RV out on the back 40 and you start, I don't know, if you either have a septic site or you don't. Most of the time they don't.
Yeah.
And so we're polluting the rivers. We're doing all sorts of stuff that we really don't
Most
want to do.
RV parks have provision for wastewater.
They do. And our regulations are quite intense. Our RV parks are quite intense, which is one of the reasons why there's a lot of controversy over this particular one. Now, the Planning Commission in this case, what they did is they chose to bring it back the following month. And what I do know what the Planning Commission wants to do is take it back to the BZA and question the BZA's approval of it. And the rationale behind that is that we have two places for campgrounds and RVs in our zoning resolution. So in the A1 zoning classification, which is where this is zoned A1, there's a provision for campgrounds. And what we did is we went by that with the person, and this person applied for this thing over 2 years ago. They've been working with an engineer for a long time. Because, like I said, the regulations are very intense. They've got to build roads in it, just like you build a county road. There's a lot of expense that goes into it. And they have to provide wastewater services and the whole 9 yards. So, sorry, my phone's going off. So anyway, let me see where I'm at. Where am I at? So you've got these regulations in A1 as campground, as a campground, but in the C1 classification, you actually have one that's more specific to RV park. And what we did is we took them through the campground in A1, and they also wanted to have a mini storage warehouse component to the front of it, which would have requires a C1 zoning classification. So what they always intended to do is if they could go through and get it approved as an RV park, their intention was to come back and try to rezone the front of it C1 in order to have the mini storage warehouse component to it. Our regulations are so intense that the requirements for them to build the RV park would almost require them, in my mind, and they have said that it would require them to have the other component to it in order to cash flow the RV park. So we always knew that would probably be the hang up, is trying to get that piece zoned C1. The hang up now, though, what sort of surprised us, which I don't disagree with, I actually do agree with it, is that if there's a provision for an RV park in C1, that there's only a provision for a campground in A1, then the correct route would have been to take them through C1 and ask them to get it rezoned C1 just for the RV park as well.
That's where I'm sort of at.
That
with
was a
this.
surprise to us. And like I said, this thing started over 2 years ago, so it has been kind of out of sight, out of mind for a long time until just recently when we started having hearings on it. So that's where we're headed with it, is we're going to take it back to the BZA and try to reverse, we're encouraging the BZA to reverse that opinion and that
Because
vote.
a campground and an RV park are two totally different things.
Two different things, right? Two different things.
And
But
an RV park is generating money, and in A1, it's agriculture, and it can be agriculture for profit. This is commercial for profit.
exactly. So
So you have to go
it's just
C1,
some
right?
conflicting language in the campground regulation part of it.
Okay.
And so it all seemed to make sense, and that even if they went through A1 as a campground, all these other regulations were still in play. And so the traffic engineering study, all those things were in play. And so it was just one of those things where, and I don't mind when I make a mistake, I make a mistake. This was on me. This is the direction that I put them into. And honestly, I feel bad about it because I know that applicant has spent a lot of money towards this. And so, but what's right is what's right. And, there's a good chance the BZA will reverse it. And then if the person comes back, they'll be applying for a C1 for the whole thing. And then you'll see it again as a C1. Likely will not get a favorable recommendation for a C1. I don't know, but as you know, I don't know how you guys vote
right.
and stuff. But
But to me, it ought to be C1. It shouldn't be Ag 1 this way with a business, I wouldn't think.
I think, you're right. I agree with you.
But the other concern that I've got too is, we can go around the city of Shelbyville, and I know we'll have regulations, but these RV parks I see in the city of Shelbyville, I'm not going to name names, but we could get in the car and drive down and look at them, and they may start off nice and they become something very undesirable. That is a fear I have with this, because it starts off with a fancy RV. Next thing you know, it's a bunch of campers and folks living there, guys, and it's not a road we want to go down. So I don't know how we enforce, you're here 30 days. Do you leave for a day and come back? and stay 29 more days, or how that works. And I can see how it could also get over time very negative. I mean, what would keep us from doing that?
Yes, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not a prophet. I don't know how these things are going to go, but at the end of the day, the reason why the standards are there, the reason why we put the standards in there was so that we could elevate the project.
Right.
You elevate the project, that means you elevate the cost of entering into the project, which means you automatically dissuade the type of thing that you're talking about. When you've got to build roads, you've got to build roads in there, which is the main reason why most developers don't build nice subdivisions, because they'd rather just carve up the frontage because they don't want to build the road. It's an expensive thing to do. So you have to have, they have to have all sorts of amenities on site. So, but by the time they do all that, you would think logic would, because some of these guys are driving $1 million vehicles.
Oh, yes.
And obviously you want that kind of tourism, right? You want those people to come in and spend their money and then go back home, and we don't have to put their kids in school. We don't have to do any of that stuff. That's a great thing. But if it's not done right, and, most of the time I think money sort of drives this question. And I think that the expense of it, you probably would not get something undesirable. But again, I'm not a prophet. I don't know.
You got to make money in the winter when something like this too. And what they run into is you want permanent residents if you can get them, what we call them. I'll bring up Normandy Lake for a second. Back in the day, or if you go to Tim's Ford, the state of Tennessee won't let you stay for sure. Park ranger, whoever stops it. Well, Normandy took their campgrounds and privatized it. And now what's happened is the guy that's got it privatized over here, I've got stuff for you to rent on the lake during the season, but Commissioner Fair here wants to stay year round. And there's about 30 other sites over there. You can drive over and look at both those campgrounds, and they're staying year round. And that's right over at Normandy. And some of that's not exactly what we would want either.
Right.
And y'all can all drive out there and look at it.
Just one further question, just maybe I overlooked it. So if it's on your personal residence, you could ask for the 30 days if they would extension for a period of time for years. Is that also to the RV park, to where that there's only a certain period of time that you get in the RV park? When I was in Nevada, the RV park I was staying in, you could be there for 30 days at a time, and then you had to submit to the city for extension. Is that something that is in the regulations?
In our RV park regulations, that is not in it. The extensions are not in there. So it's just simply 30 days.
But it's the same thing, and now it's a permanent residential area.
Yeah.
And that's what you don't want.
Right.
And so that's where we may need to look at seeing if that needs to be put in.
In the regulations for having an RV at your back 40, like we were talking about earlier, it's more flexible because these are people's homes. These are people where they're building homes. These are people that have a little bit different situation, and it's not a commercialized type of thing. It's just done for convenience. And so with the RV park, it's a commercial enterprise. And again, we don't want people living in them all the time. So we don't have that same regulation in there currently for the extensions in an RV park. We do have it for the people at the home. There's not, but we've got a few more regulations that we're going to try to fit in here in the next couple months, and so that would be something we certainly study. Again, most of these, like I said, we don't have a county RV park per se, and so not one that's been developed, to our standards. So we don't have anything like that. These regulations, again, we all start off these regulations with what we know about them, which a lot of times is very little. And then things happen, we get a few, and things evolve, and you learn a few things. And then so that we're always chasing these regulations all the time. It's a constant thing. No, it wouldn't apply. Right.
No.
Yeah. That's the type of thing that we're trying to stop.
Now, what if, I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner. Okay, well, I was just gonna mention some other ones in some other places, like Caffey Road's got a couple, but are they grandfathered in? I mean, they're right on the road right there. Or ones like that just sit right on, that's all grandfathered in, isn't it?
Well, then
If
they're
it
not
predated zoning or
grandfathered.
whatever.
They're not grandfathered in for me because I don't have jurisdiction on them right now.
Gotcha.
But from a code situation, unless they were there before 2006, they would not grandfather in because that's when we adopted building codes in '06.
Okay, my question concerns page 3 and the mini barns, and I'm reading here that they are never grandfathered in under this and want to be used. In my district, and we have a gentleman who has been to the planning, he's been here, because that very situation has happened in our neighborhood. What's the remedy going to be for that, since there's no grandfathering that clause? Will you all take a look at that at this point?
Yes, because again, we don't have any jurisdiction on it. This would give us jurisdiction. So the reason why they don't grandfather in is not because of the 2006 thing with codes, is because mini barns specifically are against the state law to be used. But again, it's a code violation. It's not a zoning violation. So it's a state code violation. So that's why if we get jurisdiction on this, then we wouldn't consider a mini barn ever grandfathered.
Okay, so the second part of my question would be, this person has managed over the course of probably 18 months or so. They have water, they have electricity, they're pretty established now. And you said you would help find them a different mode maybe of, so what does that look like? I mean,
we're not going to be finding people housing.
Right,
That's not what we're going to be doing. But we will be working with them and helping them giving them time, so to speak, to try to find alternate, housing. Where the codes department, like I said, they have one remedy: cut the power off. That's it. And we a lot of times don't know who's living in them things. And if we did, we still have to treat everybody the same. So, so we just have to treat it like somebody may have a child in there, somebody may have an elderly person on a medical device or something like that. We have to treat them all the same. So that's the reason why we want to move it into the zoning realm.
right, because initially when this one in particular started, was brought to our attention, it was just the mini barn. We were living there. The sewage was running onto the ground. Now he's managed to get a mailbox. He just borrowed the neighbor's house number and put a letter B to it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the things that are kind of concerning.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he wants that one.
Homes, where does that fall in this?
So barn dominium's a different thing. There are manufactured barn dominiums out there that people can buy as a pre-manufactured barn dominium, and they market them that way. And then, of course, you can build a barn dominium, stick build one if you want to. The code, for us, it's a matter of use, residential use, commercial use, ag use, those kind of things. Interact with people on actually what it is that they're building. So there's about 2 manufacturers probably in the say 5 or 6 state region that actually manufacture tiny homes to the Tennessee's building code. So and the state of Tennessee would license those things just like they do house trailers. Yeah, they either meet that code or they don't. The ones that meet the code don't look like the ones that you see a lot of times.
Right.
Because a lot of times the ones you see will have a ladder for a set of stairs up to a loft bed or something like that. There could no way you could pass the code for landings and riser height and that kind of stuff for stairs. So most of those things are out, but the code doesn't require a minimum square footage on any kind of dwelling. So they're not trying to price people out of the market as far as having a home of their own. They just want them to pass a minimum safety standard. And so that's what building codes are all about. And so as long as they can pass the safety standard, they'll be fine. And in fact, if somebody wants to stick build a tiny home, they're going to be being inspected in the process of being built, and they're going to pass, right? Or they're not going to get a CO. So the ones we worry about are the ones, some that meet the state standard.
Any other questions? It is. I'm glad we're airing it out, because there's a lot of valid questions have been asked. It's a pretty detailed resolution. It's 8 pages, and there's a lot in there. I read through it a couple of times, and that's, a lot of the questions here were answered. but you think, it's pretty detailed. You worried about any overreach in there or, with any of your changes?
I'm not, or
Okay,
it
well,
wouldn't be
good.
in front of you. And again, the planning commission spent a lot of time on this.
Okay.
I've never spent more time on a resolution than this one. And like I said, it took over a year to get the language where everybody was happy
Yeah,
with the language.
did the legal look at it or not, or you just didn't worry about it, or do you think it'll?
Everything I write,
stand
I
up?
think is legal, right?
I was just wondering about unintended consequences,
Right,
and sometimes they pop up.
right.
Okay, all right. Is any other question? That's the only comment I had. Okay, thank you, Director White. Okay, what's the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. It's gonna move on to the commission. Okay, that's all that's listed under new business. I've got, one, item in other business, and I brought it up last time. I read, an area, and I think we've got it, and maybe you need to turn to it, but, the county legislative body, and I've got a copy of this, and we can copy it and give it to everybody. It was sent to me last year, by Charlie Curtis concerning the finance department, and maybe I've gone by it. Evidently have. I'll just go on in there. There's some place where it may be. I think it's on 28 and 29 where it mentions Tennessee Code Annotated 5-21-105, but it does talk about special committees, as I mentioned last month. And it says, and I'm reading from this is the bottom of 28, and you've got it in the copy. It says, under special committees, general provisions, A, the county legislative body may authorize the committee to assume the functions of any or all of the following special committees, or the county legislative body may by resolution create. So one, a budget committee, two, an investment committee, or three, a purchasing committee. So this legislative body has a right to form three different committees. Now, B, it says upon creation of use shall be composed of 5 members appointed by the county legislative body. The members of such committee need not be members of the county legislative body. Well, it was true of the other, but we decided that the 4 that were placed on there need to be within the county legislative body, but they don't have to be. C, the director of finance shall be the ex officio secretary of each such committee. D, it mentions now the special committee is a budget committee. Shall establish and approve procedures and regulations necessary for the preparation of the annual operating and capital improvement budgets, which that's what we're fixing to do in the near future. Then it goes to the investment committee, and then it has comments concerning the purchasing committee, which we're not interested in those other two at this minute. And I do have some comments about this. 2.5 years ago, we had several new commissioners that were elected and came on the county commission. Several of them had the number one selection was to serve on the finance committee. Of course, there was not that many openings, and they were placed in other committees. I think there were 3 that had first choice, if I remember. I look back, and I believe that's right, was John Boutwell wanted to serve on the finance committee. He's from District 8. Diane Neely wanted to serve on the finance, number one. That's their number one pick from the 4th District. And Troy Thompson said he'd serve on anything, but if he could, he would love to serve on the finance committee. Of course, there's not that many slots, nor that anyone was aware of the special committees that we could form a budget committee. Now, all 3 of these commissioners have years of experience in finance, and numbers and budgeting, and I think they're very well experienced. I think it would provide diversity and balance, and all of them are accessible, and I think they would certainly serve the budget process very well. So we got these commissioners, I think in questions, I think you can certainly call them. I did check with them to see if they would be willing to serve, and they all said yes, that they would like to serve. I think if you have any questions, you can certainly talk to any of those. And then, of course, as Charlie Curtis said, and it's all right. Of course, I was already said to use Robert Daniel as an ex officio secretary. But he said to me, Commissioner Farah, well, why would you let the superintendent of schools or the highway department or the county mayor decide your budget when they have no responsibility for the budget? That responsibility totally lies within the county commission, with us. And I think that's very important. Now, under the we'll go back to some history. Two previous county leaders, Jimmy Woodson served 2 terms as county executive. Eugene Ray, who was, when I went on the Rules Committee in '02, was chairman. He'd been chairman for probably maybe a term or 2 before that, as then was elected for the first county mayor, and commissioners to serve from the same district. Now, this president was gone away in '02. Unfortunately, the rule is not in the bylaws. It's not in there that you need to have commissioners to serve on standing committees not from the same district. But it was strictly followed. I don't know of any case, and I went back to 2 terms before that, and I couldn't find anybody serving on standing committees from the same district. Nowhere. And I know there weren't under Jimmy Woodson, nor under Eugene Ray. So unfortunately, during the 2022 election, there were two commissioners from District 5 that were approved and placed on the Finance Committee. This certainly broke a decades-old procedure of nonpartisan appointments, and it set a precedent, because I'm not aware of any time ever that this has happened before. So I'd like to recommend and request this special committee to be considered at the March 11th Board of Commissioners. The special committee, yes, certainly we're going to hold some from finance. I think it's only right on this 5 committee staff. Then Linda Yockey from District 5. I think she's on the slate. John Boutwell from District 8 is on the slate. Diane Neely from District 4 is on the slate. And Troy Thompson from District 3 is on the slate. I have spoken to all these other people. They would not object to serve. I think I've mentioned it with some of the Rose people. They think that is a very viable and important special committee, because you're still holding 2 of the more experienced commissioners on the committee, and putting 3 commissioners that wanted to serve on this when they were elected in '22, but did not have the ability to serve until we uncovered that we could have a special committee, which is a budget committee of 5 commissioners that does just what I said. And you can read all this. Everyone needs to read it, and we need to discuss it, debate it, and call anybody you want to. But I'm certainly for it. I think it's all of that is certainly for it's for the county commission. It's our budget. It's not the county mayors. It's not the superintendent of schools. It's not the highway department. The highway department had issue with the rules, even submitting stuff to us. Well, I've got a problem with those 3 dictating what we do within our budget, which we are responsible for. The 28 commissioners, not the other 3. And that was the wishes, and we can bring him in here. I talked to Charlie Curtis last week, and he'll be glad to come down. He couldn't come tonight. He said the legislative session, as we know, is in session, and we can do what we want to. This will be left up to the 18 commissioners, and it'll be decided March 11th. And if we need to do something else, or if we have any changes or anything else, that'll be left up to the commission.
Make a motion, we send to commission, let the commission.
Okay, for discussion
yeah.
debate there?
Yeah, I have some questions.
Okay, absolutely.
Do we want to go ahead and push this through first before we ask questions?
No, absolutely.
No,
Absolutely.
Okay, so under 521-103 that you handed out to us, it says Finance Department. Then under the Finance Department, shall be responsible for purchasing, accounting, budgeting, payroll, cash management, other such financial matters the county herein provided. So how do you determine that since we're already under the 81 Act and the Finance Department has statutorily acquired all these functions, how do you? The
well,
Finance Committee-
they'll just pick it up. The 5 commissioners will pick it up as anything would. I don't see any changes of anything existing, other than we're going to have 5 commissioners representing our county commission to do it. I don't think
What are
it's
they going to do? What are they?
well, they're going to
What are
set
the
the
functions?
work on the budget.
What
They'll
does- what does
establish
that
and
mean?
approve the budget.
Help me understand what that means when you say
Well,
they'll do
what-
the budget.
Well, form it and discuss it and ask questions and be a part of the process.
But you don't have finance division to work with. Are you going to work? with
No, it'd be
finance?
Robert Daniel. Robert Daniel's the director of finance, and he serves as an ex officio secretary. it
So
says.
what about the finance committee that we have? What are they?
But
gonna do?
they'll be the same.
Well, they work on the budget too, I think, what he was asking.
But I don't know about that. We'll have to. That's some more questions that'll have to be answered. I'm assuming, and I don't know that there's several counties that have the model, 81 Act that I'm assuming have a budget committee that are formed just for 5 members.
Well, assuming isn't a good response. We
Okay.
need to know definitively if, number one, which CTAS or anybody that says you can do this other than Charlie Curtis's word that he said.
No, we can push it forward and then we'll find out. Then it's discussion debate. I mean, if there is, bring it up. We'll be in an open meeting on the 11th.
No, I mean, I don't think you have the legal authority, and I just say this because I try to look at rules. I mean, we're on the rules committee, and I don't want us to get in trouble. And everything I look at, I try to make sure we conform with rules. And I think you're overstepping what you can do unless you have some legal advice that's telling you you are not overstepping. Now, can you form a budget committee and go do what you want to do? Sure, you got 10 votes, you can go do that. But I don't know that legally you can then come in and define.
Commissioner Vick, we'll let you look into that this next month.
Oh, no, it's your project. I want you to-
I just made a recommendation.
Okay, I got it, and I
Okay.
appreciate the recommendation. It's a
Okay.
good discussion to have.
Absolutely, and we'll continue to discuss it.
Okay.
If there's any legal problems, we'll iron it out.
Okay.
It will.
Good, and if you're all, as long as we're discussing things.
Well,
that's a
absolutely.
good
It's
idea.
well,
I'm
sure.
for discussing
We're just
it.
making a recommendation.
Okay.
This hadn't passed.
Okay, good.
Well, you do look at, you got 521-104 and it says Financial Management Committee, General Provisions. And then right below that, you got 521-105 Special Committees, General Provisions. So you got definition for 2 different committees. I guess my only question is, who develops the budget? How does all that work?
Well, I think we're in this discussion period where we're trying to figure it out, aren't we? That we're all gonna
Absolutely.
talk
I'm
about
not
it.
for sure. I don't have all the answers.
Okay.
I just know that I think that it needs to be just within the county commission. And I'd like to see 5 members on a committee that helps do this. And instead of the other 3 that are not members of the, that's where I'm coming from. Okay, yes.
They're required, they're mandated to be on there. They're mandated.
Yeah.
The finance committee, which oversees the financing for the county because we're under the 81 Act.
Yeah, and specifically Robert Daniel. They're making sure that he treats the fee officers right and the superintendent of schools right. And of course, they came from that side to begin with, so he was doing that already. And the highway department, that's the reason why they're on there, because they get the lion's share of our budget. Okay, Commissioner Hooker.
Yeah, Mr. So the thing is I kind of, the premise of this sounds really nice. And so what I'd like to maybe make some recommendations, I think they need to go to John T. between now and May 11th so he can make some recommendations and read 104 and 105 to see how that works together. Now, again, not diving into it yet. I mean, I'll spend that time over the next 2 weeks really diving into it, but with what I'm hearing for the 104, basically, it's not changing the budgetary process in that the finance committee, along with the support of the highway department, the school system, and the county mayor, would still create the budget. But what this would do is create another layer of scrutiny before it gets to the commission to be able to make sure that there's nothing in there that supersedes, what the commission focus would be. They're still creating the budget. They're still going through the budgetary process, still going through that. But again, there's still a lot of questions with, those three individuals, some of them being county employees, making decisions for this commission on the budgetary process. So I think it's something I would love to hear from Charlie Curtis specifically. Maybe he can come to our meeting on the 11th. I think having a county attorney review that, to be able to kind of review that process. But again, one of the things we've got to watch for is without violating our 81 Act, are we making sure that the commission, the budget that we see at the commission, because I've had questions, some of those get taken, some of them don't. And then when we try to bring up stuff on the floor, we get procedured and over. And so I think this allows the budget to slow down for a bit, allow 5 commissioners to look at that. That allows the other commissioners to be able to have a little more time to be able to put input on that. I think I would encourage this committee, if it is successfully put through, to have more town halls with the other commissioners so they can actually go through the budget, the entire process, because I can tell you the last 2 budget cycles I've been through, I've had questions and we rush through that process. And when questions are asked, it seems to be that we're questioning a department. No, it's specific line items. And that if we don't address those in the exact right moment in time through that budget process, when we get to the floor, we get procedured to death until we're not even really able to make any adjustments. So at the end of the day, I think this is the right pathway to at least look at that. But I think that we need to make sure that we have our county attorney review that along with Charlie Curtis. And I'll tell you, I understand CTAS and we go to that, but I have found out if you ask one CTAS attorney one thing and you ask another one, you get 2 different answers. There's one person in this county or this state that I trust more than anything is Charlie Curtis. He's not going to lead us wrong. He's not going to lead us down a legal conundrum. He actually knows what's going on throughout this state. And so I think that he's a valuable resource for this process. And then I think our county attorney can look through it to make sure that we're not violating anything in 104 or 105.
Mr. Vick?
No.
Okay. Yes. Mr. Daly?
Okay, I think someone just read the number 2 provision that says such system shall include budgeting, accounting, purchasing, payroll, cash management, and such. But I think we also have to read number 1. The committee, and this refers to the finance committee, shall establish and approve policies, procedures, and regulations in addition to the specific provisions of this chapter for implementing a sound and efficient financial system for administering the funds of the county. What that says to me is their job to set up the perimeter and the policy management manual that we use that oversees all these departments. And then under that regulation, I could see where you would have a budget committee that specifically focused on just the budget piece in the creation of that budget. I think that's where it's going to fall. The committee has their procedures, and the reason those other 3 people are there is because it affects their department. And so they're setting the rules, the regulations, and the policies that we're all going to follow. And the reason we have opportunity for those 3 committees, if we wanted those, was the actual implementation of what exactly we're doing in those. And I think that may be what we find, and I think that's what Mr. Curtis is probably alluding to.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other discussion? Questions? Been a motion and a second? Been a second? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you second it, Commissioner
I
Bell?
guess I will.
Okay, it's been a motion and a
What is
second.
our motion? What's the motion?
It's just to push it on to the,
Commission?
yeah, and John T's office or the commission, he can study it
Do we
in the
want to defer,
meantime.
go to John T and come back to us next month?
That'll be fine, whatever
Let's do
y'all
that.
want to do.
Defer.
Let's,
a
I'll
month.
go, I'll go Commissioner Bickle. Let's defer.
But this
go.
budget process
Okay,
is
yeah.
going to
I
start
know.
pretty quick,
It
so,
comes
We
back
need to
here
get
next month.
ruling, are we thinking correctly?
yeah, that's
Right.
fine. Whatever
Just
y'all want
double
to do.
check, make sure,
Yeah.
bring it back here, and we'll go from there.
Does that suit everybody?
Second that.
Okay.
All right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. So we're waiting on legal counsel.
Yeah, once it comes back from John T's office, I would encourage you maybe to set up a study session so we can have some discussion and be able to kind of lay out that framework. And I think
Okay.
that might be something that's helpful. Just like we're doing with this wastewater thing in a couple of weeks. I think it's good to have those study sessions, to have that conversation and create the framework. That way, when it goes to the commission, we have a relatively complete document that we can actually refer to.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Discussion? Is there any announcements? They got any announcements? Okay. Commissioner Thomas.
March, the fire code, safety codes are supposed to come back before the commission. Do y'all need to put our code, safety codes are supposed to come back before the commission? Do y'all need to put that on the agenda, or does that automatically come on the agenda in March? That'll be
Did
the
we
90
defer,
day.
did we defer that?
For 90 days, there was a
Okay.
90-day wait period.
I think that the
the
motion on the
public-
floor was to defer for 90 days, so
Okay.
that we'll make certain that
Gets
gets,
To the commission.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I think that's right.
That's right.
I'm just making sure
Yep.
that,
No, that's
No,
right.
I think you're ready to put it back on.
Yep.
if you want to.
Okay.
We already approved it. It's just, I'd say, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Yep.
yes, sir. Any other business or been none announcements, then entertain a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Oh dear.
call the Public Safety Committee to order. Commissioner Maddox is going to lead us in prayer. Would bow.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity to come before you, Lord. I pray that you continue to watch over us, continue to be with our county, be with our representatives. Lord, I pray that you would just help us tonight in this discussion, make the best decision for the people that we serve. Lord, thank you again for your son died on the cross. Lord, I pray that you just continue to keep your hand over our nation. And in your name I pray, amen.
Amen. Next on the agenda is roll call. All members are present. Next will be the approval of the agenda.
Motion to
Second.
Got a motion and second to approve the agenda as presented. Next will be the minute approval from January 21st. This committee.
Motion approved.
second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next will be our public comment period. Anyone wish to speak tonight? There wasn't nobody on there. Anybody here like to speak? Hearing none, we'll go into the animal control report.
I believe you have the report, and she wasn't able to be here tonight.
Yeah.
She's a little under the weather.
We have her report enclosed. Next will be the sheriff's department report. He is present.
Okay. In January, y'all have got this, I know, we patrolled 79,735 miles. 843 warrants were served, 180 arrests, 388 inmates through the jail, but I have Lieutenant Cook here. We'll let him handle the jail part. 267 investigations, 285 traffic stops, 555 total calls. That's pretty much all I've got. I did not have, and it wasn't from lack of asking, but I did not have the drug task force report at the time I left to come up here. So I don't know if y'all got it or not, but I haven't. So I don't have it, but I do have the courtroom report for January. And there was 5,651 people that came into the judicial complex, 35 court sessions with a total of 1,958 individual court cases. Deputies served 22 criminal and civil warrants and took 19 people into custody on warrants. Deputies also, and I'm talking about the deputies and court security, transported 112 inmates from court holding courtrooms. And that's all I have.
We didn't receive the report either from DTF, so you wasn't alone. So
He may have forgotten it, but
and he'll catch up.
yeah.
Do you have any questions for the sheriff at this time? Here's Ronnie. We can hear from Ronnie on the jail.
How are y'all? So Ronald couldn't be here tonight. He asked me to come and give you the numbers for this month. Total jail intakes, 387. We released 376. We served 26,977 meals. For as far as money we brought in, commissary, we brought in $6,114.08. Phones, $12,402.91. And the work crews brought in or saved the county $23,760 for the month. I saw the numbers for the state inmates. 46,000 or 148,000. I don't remember the exact number. I saw it on his on his computer.
Any questions for the jail report?
No questions, just maybe an update. I know that your MRT program continues to show success.
Yes, sir.
Just curious if you had an update for the public as far as how it's going, any other success stories coming out of that, or?
Well, we actually have about 100 people on the street right now. So we, in the entire program, you know, I've kind of told y'all in the past, our recidivism number is 3.7%, which is like unheard of. You know, if you reduced recidivism by 50%, that's a great thing, you know. So, you know, people are getting out, they're not coming back to jail. A couple of things I would like to tell y'all about, though. Last year we started a garden, and I know a lot of people know about that. And the early part of the summer, I heard about this new program called horticulture therapy, where you know, in a garden. And so I wanted to get the guys involved in that. And it's kind of difficult because you can't have men and women in the same place. And to be honest, the ladies own the garden. I mean, that's their thing. Nobody's getting them out of there, you know. But we thought about it and we decided to start a forestry program. And it was something that our horticulture therapist told me about that he had looked into. They do it out west to replace trees that they lose in wildfires. And they go to the prisons and they grow trees, and then they donate them back into the community. And he said he'd been wanting to do it for several years here, but he just hadn't had any support. So I said, man, that's a great idea. So we are in probably next week. We're going to start planting trees. The guys will be responsible for that program. We're looking at starting some beehives at the jail. Just a really all-inclusive sort of a program to teach people, it's hard to teach work ethic in a classroom. You can't do really been clean their whole adult life. I can teach them everything. I do. I mean, we teach them everything they need to know to be responsible adults. But I can't teach work ethic, not in a classroom. That was the reasoning behind the garden in the first place. Anybody that has not come out and seen that garden yet, you really need to. I encourage guests, come walk through it. So anyways, I'm really proud of that horticulture program. I mean, well, specifically the forestry program for the guys. One, it's going to get them involved in the garden, more, but it is a way that for the rest of their lives, they can take their kids and show them the trees that they grew. They grew while they were in jail, and all those trees are going back into the community. We hadn't worked out we're about a year away from that, but like schools and churches and parks and any community areas, that's where we want to replant them.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
I think that is going to be a really popular program in the community because people are going to get to see. Most of what I do is done inside a jail, and unless you come to an MRT class, you really don't get to see it. You hear about it, but you don't see it. I know some of y'all public, they don't see it. They don't come to class, so they don't see it. They hear about it, but they don't see it. This is something they can see, and they can see for the next 100 years. So,
Chris, tell the audience how many of our inmates that have gone through the program is really wanting to relocate back to Bedford County to give back for the success that they received while they were incarcerated.
Yeah, that's sort of a battle we've been fighting ever since we started. The people we're dealing with, they have been a burden on society for most of their life. And it's not that they're bad people. It's just circumstances put them in situations that they wound up in jail. And, the community has been required to support them for a long time. But we get them to a point where they're confident and they're ready to come back and be productive members of our community. But we don't have any sober living opportunities here, or at least we didn't until recently. We do now, a few. But we have to send them off to other communities. And they go there to do their sober living time for, if they're on parole or whatever. And while they're there, they get established. They get a job, they get a car, and it's hard to, it's hard to get people to come back here once they're established in another community. Now, they're good, upstanding citizens of the community, paying their taxes, and but they're they have to go somewhere else. So we're actually starting to see some of those people want to come back here now. And hopefully we're starting to get some opportunities here to keep these people here. I think over the next year or so, a lot of that stuff's going to change, and we'll get to see, a lot of what we have built these people back from the worst things that could ever happen to somebody. And we brought them back and we made them confident and we've restored their self-esteem and they believe in themselves. And we shouldn't have to send them off to other counties. It drives me crazy. So anyways, is that the question that you wanted me to
Yes.
ask? Yes, ma'am.
One more comment. I know that, for me, I believe one of the main ways to changing your life is through Jesus. But, and I wanted to say I appreciate you. I know that you've worked with Victory Baptist to get a host of folks in there. And I believe that everybody was kind of working on a timeline that was rather tight. And it's my understanding that y'all work with them closely, and appreciate all that you do there too from a faith-based.
Yes, sir. I am. Listen, the pastor called me and he was so motivated. I'll put you out in the garden. Listen, you can minister to people outside just as well as you can inside in a classroom. And I told him, man, I said, your people can just whatever you choose to talk about is up to you, right? You can talk to them about their lives and what their plans are and what their future looks like, or you can minister to them, whatever. And I think it's great because they got a lot of people that are really interested in what we're doing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank
you. Anything else?
You're dismissed.
David, EMA.
I don't have anything to add to the report. I will touch on what they were talking about the program. So myself and Chief Deputy are part of it. Chief Deputy had someone come in from a program that has graduated and had turned their life around. And it was a moving experience. Both our adults and youth heard that and expressed they wanted more. I think that's what we are going to look at. So, yeah, we're getting the word out to them too. So they were pleased and glad to hear that that program's working. The only couple other things, both of them are weather related. When's the past? When's the future? The past is flooding. I know there was concern maybe we may have some flooding here the last time we had the rounds of rain and so forth that came through. Just to share that the National Weather Service has a program. It's the Flood Prediction Center. They are tested rain, but also can put totals in that's not open to us as emergency managers just yet. They can do that. But to give you an example, they worked with some counties that were experienced flooding, I guess, last weekend. Red River up in, close up that way. The Duck, which was down towards Cornersville that way. But they provide us with information prior to give us a heads up. So it's a new thing that they are offering. So in the near future, when we have a time to have them down and they can come down, we're going to learn more about that. And I've talked to Director White about it too, as far as being the floodplain manager. So that's something, a plus that we've kind of found out about when we visited their first part of this month. Second thing is, of course, we're supposed to have some weather moving in tonight, some snow. Last indication was 1 to 2 inches. Take that with a grain of salt. Like I always say, it's the weather. So it changed the other night. We were here Saturday night with storm Facebook and things like that. So for any updates or concerns or whatever, that's all I have.
Just to elaborate a little bit on your mapping thing, I think that was what John Carney was working with us. Our GIS guy was working with us. The state has allowed him to get in there and work that model. They can take those rainfall predictions and then they can lay it on the GIS mapping system, and we can see what it's going to do to our county. Now, right now, it's not a free thing, but the state is looking at allowing that to be free for GIS people. So,
And that is correct. He put that information out
Yeah.
at a seminar that he had attended,
yeah,
which brought me to ask the question to the National Weather Service, which they had this, but they were kind of it's in experimental mode right now. That's why we can't get a hold of it. They're testing it to make sure that everything's working well with that. So
That's cool.
theirs is free right now. Upon request, or if they see a danger for a county or whatever for flooding, they will let us know and send that to you.
Mr. Kitchen, I want to say thank you to you. It seems like no matter what the issue, you're always there to help, and you're prompt in your response. I just wanted to say I appreciate it. You know, just yesterday evening we received a call, kind of inquisitive about what's going on with the radio systems and the upgrades, and you were quick to respond to that, and I really appreciate that. I know that the hopes and the wishes of everyone is that those systems are installed as quick as we can possibly.
Right.
But I just wanted to say I appreciate your always prompt response times and your attention. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll, juvenile detention, I know.
But she wasn't, she's actually out of town,
Okay.
but I believe her report's in with her.
Yeah, the report's enclosed. Next would be probation. See him either.
I believe we have the
But his
report, but I
report.
didn't hear from him, so I'm not sure. It's something come on.
That's all the reports, and they are all enclosed. Now we'll need a motion to approve the reports as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any other reports or information to come before this committee? Hearing none. Old business? New business? Announcements? Adjournment. Thank you, Chairman.
Let's call the Courthouse and Property Committee to order. Commissioner Davis is going to open us in prayer.
Father God, we do love you, and I want to thank you, Lord, for this committee. I want to thank you, Lord, for these leaders in this community. Lord, I ask you to bless them, fill their hearts with your Holy Spirit, Father. Lead and guide and direct us and protect us tonight as this weather comes in and as school is out, and Lord, bring us all back in session the next time together. In your wonderful, precious name, amen.
All right, any public comment? Not seeing any. All right, need a motion for minutes approval of January 21st, 2025.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any alterations or any comments? All right, all in favor?
Yeah.
All righty. Our first report's a codes report. Don't see her, but you have a really good report in your packet. All right, any questions about that report? All righty. Next is zoning and planning. Chris, step out. All right. See a report in here.
Okay, very good. Oh, thank you. All right, any questions on that?
So I printed off a list of the special projects that we have and what the status is of are those of right now. And also we did fill our position that we had open. So that's been filled really quickly. We had a lot of applicants. So we'd like to thank Shanna Boyette for her hard work to try to get us a lot of qualified applicants for the job. So we ended up hiring a young man that has graduated the Tennessee College of Applied Technology program. And so he's going to be, he's already joined us. So he's already kicked off. I'd have him on board. When you pulled up, you probably noticed there are some projects ongoing on the courthouse and annex buildings. Those are the exterior lighting project, which there are some, which Mr. Sweeney will probably update you on the rest, but there is a estimated time of completion for toward the end of March for that testing, installation, configuration, and all that. So I'll take any questions you guys might have.
Any questions for Mr. Carter? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank
you. All right, fire department. He stepped out. Oh, there he comes. Uh-oh. Yeah, as he's coming up, I just wanted to say I was out West Tennessee earlier this week, and we are very blessed in this county with our public safety, with EMS, EMA, fire department, sheriff's department. We just have an absolutely phenomenal public safety group in this county, and and I was thinking about that when David was up talking about it, because if we're not planning for these things, you can really get caught. And we just have a phenomenal group, and sometimes we don't say it enough. So I just wanted to take that time as you came up, Mark, to just thank all of your department as well as the other departments. Brian, EMS, I think it's just, we're very blessed to have that. And, some of the other counties in the state just don't have that same level of quality. So I just wanted to thank all of them. So, all right, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have anything else to add to my report. I did run one report today that took us from January 1st up until today, and our structure fire calls are going up, which they normally do at this time of year. And when I say structure, that can be a house, a mini barn, as structures, and that number is increasing. And what we're seeing is portable heating systems and extension cords. And once again, I'd like people who've got cold weather, sub-zero weather coming in. Saw one report today, a -9 is a wind chill. People got to be careful. We want those numbers to go down. I know it's tough. You got animals, you got people, but take extreme care. And once again, I think last month we installed 8 smoke detectors, and we'll do that anytime. It doesn't matter when they call, And the city of Shelbyville does the same thing. So people need smoke detectors, call and get them. They're free. It's a state-funded program now. Our labor's, county eats that cost, but the smoke detectors and the installation of them doesn't cost anything to the people out there.
I think you mentioned it last month, also barns with animals and the heating lamps and things like that, especially in this weather.
Yes. And I will tell you, probably next week we will take delivery of another fire apparatus to replace, I think it's an 82 model truck. So hopefully next week it'll be ready to go. And of course, I told you about the grant during the last commission meeting for the rescue tools. They were delivered today. So all we have to do is send that shipping ticket to the firehouse subs, and they pay the bill. And then firehouse or the fire marshal grant, which is $25,000, will buy turnout gear, which is about 6 sets. So that stuff's expensive.
Great. All right, any other questions for Mark? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, you have an E911 report in your packet. All right. Media GIS.
I believe John's got he got not feeling well, so stepped out, but I believe his report was in there for you, and then I'm standing ready for you next.
All right. And on to county building projects.
So I told you guys last month, of course, I think you have in your packet our regular information on the updates of all the projects going on, but I do have the owner rep with us tonight, and I have Bart Klein from Klein Sweeney Architect. As I was talking to you last month about concern about some of the costs associated with the juvenile and the needing to add the morgue to the surplus facility. We need to understand what that is and how that works and what that could cost. These guys are going to explain the process of what we've been up against, what they've done to try to mitigate cost, and we'll go ahead and give you an idea of what we think these differences would be. Now, that's why it's triggered a study session for the finance next week, a week from today, so that they can look at figuring out if there's a path forward for the funding differences that would be associated with it. But again, tonight's to update and let you guys ask questions of the ones that are actually managing the projects. Okay. So I don't know if you want to, how you want to start it.
Yeah, if y'all want to come up and then basically give us an overview of kind of where we're at with you wants to go from there.
Yeah, so y'all want to ask questions or?
Just give us a little overview of kind of where we're at right now.
So about over 4 years ago, we started working on a juvenile facility. We started doing pricing. At that time, the commission decided not to move forward. This past budget meeting, it passed through the budget and finance committee for us to move forward. So in that process, we designed plans. The state has come up with a lot of new codes for juvenile facility. It added square footage to the building because we made the decision as a county that we were going to do the camera route instead of the employee route. So we had more girls. We had to separate girls from boys. There was guidelines that had to be met. We originally had the building come back higher than we had expected. We spent 4 months value engineering the building, changing the shape of the building, reducing the roof pitch, the mechanicals. But just to give you an example, because of the size of the structure, on a normal school, which everybody's pretty familiar with, our electrical runs $45 to $50 a square foot. In this building, it was close to $125 a square foot. So the MP&E, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, was astronomical. A lot of security provisions were put in. So we have met with Bell's Construction numerous times here and in Nashville, going through the plans, having the architects redesign stuff that we felt we could cut costs without affecting the integrity of the structure for long-term use for Bedford County. So that number has come in. We probably cut about $2 million out of the structure, and we're still waiting on some numbers to come back, and I'll let Bart go through that process. On the surplus building, we had close to $550,000 on the construction cost. The morgue was added. That's going to be between $200,000 and $225,000 for that structure because of all the requirements to have a morgue, having a generator backup, conditioned space. It's all a completely enclosed structure within the building. So that's where those numbers have come at. The one caveat to that is the proposal that we pushed for Bell's was because those two buildings would be built at the same time, we felt like we shouldn't have to pay for additional construction management. And they came back and agreed that they would reduce the construction management cost, and that's how we were sharing the cost on those two buildings. So it's strictly up to.
So what was the reason why the morgue is being added to it? Do we have a change in the county policy, or is the hospitals no longer taking?
The hospitals are no longer taking them. I don't know what the time frame is. I'll let Chad.
Yeah, and we reported that Vanderbilt come to us and said, we're not going to be able to manage out of hospital deaths. Now, the patient, we're doing cardiac arrest and they're resuscitating. They are managing those, but there's a lot, and it's climbing, as you can imagine, out of hospital deaths. And so those cases are, is it averaging a couple a week? I've got the guys here that can tell you a little bit about the operating, because here's part of what's making that. It's pretty expensive to put the cooler systems in with redundancy that you need for a body anyway. But we need to look at the long-term effect of the fact that we're going to have to manage those bodies, and ideally, you know, they're in and right back out when we wind up with them. But that's not true when you look at the long term of some of the things. So I think it'd be short sighted to not put the provisions in. Now we're trying to keep the operation as limited as possible for now, but it's with inside the building itself. It's just a matter of closing it off, having security associated with it, and those things. But Brian can tell you a little bit about how they're dealing with operations or some of the things they've discovered now, being fully responsible for managing that. So he's.
Yeah, like I said, like the mayor was saying, it was kind of sprung on us at a very short notice that, hey, you guys are going to have to take over this. We're going to quit managing your out of hospital deaths. So we found some temporary stuff to get us by for a little bit, but we have got a responsibility to the citizens to be the mayor and Mr. Sweeney, and we started working on some stuff, and they've got some really good things, but we're not elaborate. We're just trying to make it efficient. So, you know, we are dealing with probably 2 to 3 out of hospital deaths a week now. And we have to manage those, like the mayor was saying. We'd like to get those turned over really quick. That's our goal. And we're even working with some of our local funeral homes that we're trying to provide a service to get them there and not go into a morgue facility that we're in right now very fast. Unfortunately, you get into an unclaimed body, those kind of things. There's some state statutes that we have to stand by. We have to make sure that we provide adequate storage for those bodies, and that's what we're working on. I'll be glad to answer anything I
So
can.
with this 225,000 and what y'all kind of planned out, what kind of capacity is that? Is this a man?
It looks like it's going to hold about 6 bodies. We went and toured some facilities that are already, the one that we're probably going to mimic is one at Coffee County. It's a 6-body, it's a simple rack system that we're able to store bodies in. It does have a lift system to try to make the most out of our space that we have. We also trying to do some very minimal things, but also have a restroom facility there for cleanup afterwards. You know, we're dealing with biohazard. Also a small work area, because there is some times where the medical examiner will need to come in and fill out paperwork and those kind of things so that we can get those bodies facilitated to the place that they're going.
And so would this be a manned facility, or is this just, it would be a
Not
secured
not at this
facility?
Of getting there someday, and is why we're trying to have security with inside the facility. But no, we don't see that today. But the day will come, as you can imagine. And as he said, the medical examiner has to be on site. At sometimes, depending on the nature of it and whether they can turn it loose, they got to have some basic toileting abilities and hand washing and sanitizing. Those records, as we now are really having to keep those, makes sense that they would stay within that facility as opposed to who's got the record today and what have you. And so, but we're not talking about autopsy, and we're not talking about doing viewings. We're not talking about, but that we cannot dispose of. And then there's a process that we'll have to hold that for a certain amount of time and keep a record of what was done with it in the end, and how the families, all those things are being worked at through operations. But this is really just to try to make sure that we have a functioning facility when we're done. It sounds pretty simple in that you can go out and buy a cooler, and that is sort of what we're doing at the old facility currently where the workhouse was. And there's actually 2, and they have been broke down on both sides. But this more modern would have generator backup. Some of the things that, you know, part of you would say, well, let's keep it to a minimum. We're trying to do that. But we also need to look at long-term. We're not going to probably be able to pass on this responsibility to the state or somebody. The county is going to hold it and own it, so to speak. So I think it would be short-sighted not to just make sure those basic provisions, electrical, climate control to some extent, and those things be in there with it. That's what's driving the 225, 220, somewhere in that range, give or take, 1,000 or 2 there.
Anybody else?
Is there leaving room for expansion? I mean, I know
Now, what
you said
constitutes
six bodies. I mean, is there room for expansion?
We
as far
can
as-
take 9 bodies if we had to. It's set up for 6, but there's an area that we would have to move people in out. If we have to put a body, a large person like me has to be up on the 3rd tier, you would have to use the lift. So you would have to move that body
Yeah, and that rack system is figured into that cost. Now, that stuff's pretty expensive
As you know, if you're
too.
gonna
Those
crowd
special
yourself, you need
lifts.
to
that-
expand later on.
So
Correct.
you said it's a triple stack?
It
And
is.
see, if I'd remember from the old one, the double stack at Vanderbilt, it was very difficult.
It's
That's
a
nice.
special lift. I'd never seen one until I seen this one either. It's got roller balls on it. You can go left, right, forward, backwards, angle. Once you're up there to show, because that's the next thing is we don't need back injuries.
That's what I was gonna say, yeah, that
for
adds to
everybody.
that.
And we would not. I mean, you would have to be today in my mind. It would take a multi-casualty accident or something to generate that many bodies that fast, because there are some provisions that after so many days of holding a body and can't get it claimed or whatever, we check the boxes. You could have that body cremated if it came to that. So we wouldn't expect to just be holding bodies long term. So that number should carry us for some time. And again, Coffee County has the interstate, and they wind up with several at a time. And this model, this size, was their recommendation based on the kind of loads that they see at this time too. But I couldn't say forever that you couldn't have. But the funeral homes have been excellent to step up and help. I'm sure in a true situation such as that the hospital that we could get some relief from somebody. I just think it would be short-sighted to maybe think about a 2-tray, kind of like the old hospital. And there's lots of problems with that old style system. This would be the more modern way to do it. But it would include. It's expected to include the equipment as well as adding the bricks and mortar inside.
Any other questions on that particular project?
So, and then on top of that, we're going to need to add up to 225,000
Yeah, 550 plus the 200.
plus the two.
We're waiting on a couple of prices to come back, but 200.
100,000, and so we're looking at needing to possibly amend 210, 220,000, depending
what
on
I
what
was
that.
driving at,
Correct.
is how
Yeah.
much we're
So
gonna
we'd be
have to
looking at
have.
an amendment for that project somewhere in the $220,000 range, give or take 1,000 or two.
I would like to add one thing. This is kind of new. A lot of counties are getting hit with it from the hospitals now. So the last 120 days going through this process, calling the state, what requirements they don't know. So I would say in another year after everybody's had to go through it, those are going to change the requirements and the codes. And right now we're not having to really deal with that. We do have to have a bathroom. We have to have a meeting area because you're going to have people that are going to come view the body. We have to have a filing cabinet separate for that, and we have to have a safe for personal items. Those are all, and we have
a workspace for when the medical
yeah,
director,
and then
he
we
has to
have
fill out paperwork.
and we have to have separate entry from the outside. So that's what, and the that conditioned area added cost to it, security system, all the enclosures.
Always has done when we had a county-based hospital, and we're going to start to probably see other things pop up, especially when these large conglomerates, because they're looking at ways of cutting costs as well. So, all right. Any other questions for Brian or them on this project? All right. I guess let's redirect back to the juvenile
Yeah,
center.
now we're ready to talk about juvenile. And again, of course, he knows our journey, but I have the architects here, and I think that'd be well served to let him talk to you about what he had to go back and redesign, look at, and what he sees as driving the factors that's causing us to find ourselves here. And then we can talk about what that amount, we think that amount is. And again, Finance Committee will have to see if there's a path or put something together for y'all's consideration.
Sweeney Associates. So again, in 2021, when the project was conceived, it was budgeted about $5 million. So if you look at it being shelved and then picking up this year or within the 5 or 6 months, we've experienced roughly 10 to 13% of yearly inflation. You guys know that from when you buy milk, you see the cost of gas. I mean, it's just what it is. So if you take a building and say $5 million for this much square footage and you add 46% to it, you basically increase that number to the $7-8 million range really quick, just with inflation. Below it all, what's going on with the state, they're redoing their children's services across the state. So they're writing new regulations. So some things that came up is your outside requirement for outdoor space, your isolation rooms. So that added roughly 600 to 800 square foot to the building to get it there. And then because the building is a smaller building, 11,000 square foot, you're getting a higher cost for MP&E and structure. So when you build a school or something of 80 to 100,000 square feet, you get a cost savings because you're building so much. When you build something small, you're not seeing. What's good to say is the base design for this to get everything how was wanted or needed that number about 2 to 3 months ago was roughly $8.5 to $9 million. And so we've gone through what is called a value engineering phase, where we look at everything down from the fixture on the wall, the requirements for the structure, the requirements for the safety, the requirements, to the exterior materials. And we go back and forth with the one, don't give you a building that does not perform per the program, or that lasts the full roof, which may save $20,000, but then make your roof not last as long as something we wouldn't want to accept. But however, maybe we don't need a larger vestibule. We can reduce the size of the lobby. So we went through those value engineering tasks, and that brought us down to roughly the 7.2 number, which includes some contingency on top of that, 7.344. So that is the journey of the juvenile facility. And I actually started working on that. It was the first project. I actually worked with Linda and Jeff when it was looking at your existing facility, I think in 2019. So there we did a study to say, how do we take that facility and bring it up to speed? And it was so expensive to get it there. You're basically building yourself out of the use. And so I've kind of been involved as the iterations have gotten here, and it's been a long conversation to get here, and you're finally here. Unfortunately, you've basically experienced what most municipalities experience is we see a need 4 years back. We want that need to be fixed, but yet we got to fund it 4 years later, and we're always fighting inflation.
So just as a refresher, it was around 6 million, correct, that we passed?
Let me strip down for
Okay,
you
go
what amendment it would be tracking based on this. It's about 2 million over what we targeted originally for the project. Now with a $400,000 contingency, or maybe it's 2.1 and a contingency of 300,000, but basically you're looking at 2.4. Okay, is where the latest information suggests. Again, and I've already spoke with finance department about, well, however they look at this, we'll make sure they're separated out. You guys can vote them up or down individually or however you want to do it. But they got to figure out if there's a path. And that's what study session will be for prior to the finance committee meeting. But again, no matter what happens, it'll have to go to the commission to go. But we really can't go much further with the project without everybody deciding and understanding what that cost would be for both the morgue, 220,000.
So I had a question. So we got, so we got an estimated cost in that $10.4 million that we borrowed for this. How did we arrive at that cost because you keep going back to 2019, 21, last year in that 10.4 were new numbers that had been reconfigured because they were considerably more than what we had initially been told. So I guess I'm having a little trouble following how we got here.
Yeah, so in 2021, we finished a program and provided a cost of, it was actually $4,510,000 was in our report. So if you go from 2021, just on inflation alone, and at that time that project was stalled, was put on hold, and then we were rehired to put back up. We were asked to proceed with the project roughly 5 to 6 months ago. So when we proceeded with the project, we picked it back up, had to revamp the program, make sure the program was still valid, what we were going to build was still valid, and basically designed the project from that point. So at that time, immediately, just from waiting that much time to now, you immediately hit 40% of inflation cost. And typically we could say, hey, we've seen 8 to 10% inflation, but if you look at the history, it's been about 12 to 13%. So in terms of what your question, I don't know where you got that number. It wasn't from us, but it was 2019, 2020.
So we had contractors give us square footage pricing. We didn't have plans yet. So we took the square footage pricing that we'd gotten from 2 or 3 builders, and they said it's running $650 a square foot. That's where we came up with the original number. Then when we came up with the design, we had to add square footage, almost, was it 800 square feet to the structure. So it's just been a multiple number of things. So the number is 7.2. Bales has a $134,000 contingency in their number, which is split 80-20 on the savings, 80% to the county, 20% to Bales. I asked for another $100,000 contingency from the mayor because we've made so many changes through value engineering that won't have final construction drawings for 2 more weeks. And so we've made some changes. One of them was to the mechanical. We're waiting on the mechanical engineer to says, he said, I agree with what you're wanting to do, but I need to study it to make sure it's a viable change. So that is a owner contingency. 100% of that comes back to the county. But we're trying to get numbers prepared for you. So that's where the contingencies lie.
Yeah. I can talk a little bit too. So, and we deal with this in just about every municipality. So construction is a moving target. Anybody knows construction and budgets, and it's just always moving. Right now, I mean, since the tariffs have been mentioned the last 2 weeks, we were receiving emails, Monday that, hey, this is going to affect project costs. So honestly, the wind can turn one way and the other, and project costs can move. And so when you ask someone early on, without having a design done, without having this done, all they can do is go off of what the current market is saying at that point in time. Current market changes daily, and so everybody in your position or in positions that have to look at budgets, they always want to hold to a budget number for something that is so volatile. And really it's managing expectations and managing costs is really what the outlook is for the team, because everything costs on is if there's a shortage on steel, if there's a shortage on wood. Right now, we're going to see probably a 10 to 12% increase in steel in the next 60 days. If wood happens in Canada, and then we all go to Southern Pine, you're going to see the wood industry go up like it did in COVID. And so it's just what we deal with. And so it's really hard to hit a moving target.
Well, I fully understand that part of it. I guess for me, I'm disappointed in the fact that we took construction costs and we didn't really talk about the planning phase of what that was going to look like. And here we are, borrowed $10.4 million, spent the money, and now it's not going to work. And so where does that leave us financially as a county to come up with the funds that's going to finalize out 2 projects that were supposedly very important to the county? And I just don't know how that's going to wash.
And just as a reminder, when did we approve that? It was around 6 months ago. Do you remember that date, Mayor? May?
I think it was May of 24.
All right. I just, because I thought the same thing as I was tracking this, because when we were in May and we were talking about it, I thought that when we were approving those numbers, then that was more recent numbers than 2019, 2020. Because, I mean, as we know, the inflation was going up that entire time. So, yeah, go ahead.
Greg, I want to address what you and Commissioner Neely have brought up. In the last 6 months, we've changed some of the processes we're doing in the county and in the school system, and we are doing a lot of upfront cost analysis instead of waiting till the commission approves it. Then we draw the plans, then we come up with the cost. We're doing design phases now on the front end schematics, so we know exactly what we're getting, which we've never done in the past. I mean, Cartwright's a perfect example. 5 years ago, we could have built it for $32 million, and it ends up costing $38 million. So what we're trying to do through the schools and the county now is do some of the upfront study and analysis, get the plans, the schematic drawn, so we have an actual blueprint of what we're looking at, what we think we can build, what we can approve, and then we have a cost with the contractor and the architect involved in that phase, instead of approving an amount and then getting the architect to draw it and then getting the state to approve it. The fire marshals also changing all their stuff. I think Mark brought that up, and we're fixing to have to put storm shelters in buildings. So that's going to be another huge amount that's going to be added to some of the structures such as schools.
Well, I appreciate you adjusting that process, because it's hard as a commission for us to now go back to our constituents, and even some of us had heartburn at 10 million. Now you're saying that whole project's going to be 12.5 million, and it's going to be hard to digest that, going and talking to constituents to say, hey, we didn't really approve the right number. Now we've got to go back and try to find 2.5 million more.
I don't envy the finance committee, because I'll have the hard part of trying to find where that's going to come from.
Yeah, this that also included Liberty. I don't remember now exactly what the amount was, but that was. And here's the problem that goes with government: you got to approve the money before we can spend the money, and so we can't go out and hire them and have them build it and then come back and tell you guys what it costs. All we can do is you have the experts.
We have to do as many of the processes prior to.
Well, I agree, but you have to spend money, your architect and all those things. And again, you got to approve that before we can do it. And so
we've been doing that a lot lately. So we just got to be very careful that when we go to the commission floor, that we're being told as close to it. I understand inflation happens. I understand changes happen. But when we see a fluctuation of $2.5 million, that's we have to justify that.
I don't think anybody's happy about that number. Agreed. And again,
only thing we spend is for the school. That's a portion of that was spent for Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Liberty.
So those funds are still sitting there.
Not Liberty, just Thomas.
Okay.
Yeah. So the funds are still sitting there, except what's been expended for work that's already been done. That was agreed.
Because we are spending money up front that maybe we shouldn't be or don't have, or we don't know where that money's coming from to do these processes, only to find out that we can't afford the project at the end of the day.
Most school projects have been like that too. It's all right. It's a very difficult.
That way.
Yeah, that's why we cut off wings and done all kinds of things in the past to try to. We're trying to keep the projects intact and make sure that you know what you're up against. So we didn't move on with the project once we realized that there's going to be a shortfall. So that's coming to you. You have the information. Finance committee will look at that to see if and what pass would be there with. Yes. Yeah. 345.
Yeah, and I know with this one set, the sun shines out, but I would encourage you in future. We need to have study sessions after 5 p.m. because we've been commissioners to get there. I'm going to be scrambling to try to get there, and I know several of the other commissioners as well. 3:45 may be convenient for some of the employees, but for us that's got to be able to be there and digest some of this, I think we need to have it after 5 for our public to be able to be present, to be able to put some comments in on things like that. So, all right, any other questions?
Yeah, real quick. Are we able to get a more detailed layout of the juvenile center showing the increases, where the increases came, why the increases came, something written down?
I think we have a presentation on the 25th, so we can put that in the.
Can we get that
slideshow.
before?
Yeah.
So we can go over it. Just
We can give you a printout of all the value.
That'd be great.
So you can do that. We can send you the document showing the plan. I think we presented that at the finance committee a couple of months ago. We'll be glad to.
just to say this is where the increase came, this is why it's more expensive, that just a more detailed layout than what we have right here. Yes, the changes, why we are making changes, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the big thing is it's really inflation in the bid, and so at the end of the day, it's not a fun task, and I think you're there now, managing the process. Unfortunately, you approved a number before you got a number, and that's what happens sometimes. But feeling a need, it's hard to do in the municipality.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you for coming down. It's definitely nice to have the insight of this, so thank you so much. All righty. Find my agenda again. All right, so go ahead. No, go ahead.
Mr. Sweeney, on the community middle school concession drawings.
I'm sorry?
The concession at community middle school,
Yes,
how's that coming along?
it got completed this week. We've already started doing the cost. We've sent a letter to the state fire marshal for an acceptance, which is just a process. But we're planning on starting that site next week. We started Cascade. We poured the slab 2 weeks ago. Rain killed us. We started framing on Thursday. We roofed it on Saturday.
Cool.
When is I had somebody ask me, when is Cascade going to finish?
I'm hoping to have it finished by the middle of April.
And does that have like a breezeway through
It
the middle?
does.
Is that
It's got
the
a 10-foot
entrance?
breezeway. The bathrooms and the ticket are on the left. The concession and store, seen it.
Yeah, I was out there for basketball games on Saturday. It's looking nice.
You saw us roofing then.
Yeah. Well,
How about the LED lights? Have they started anywhere
The
yet?
24th.
24th?
As long as weather cooperates. 30-mile-an-hour winds, rain, and 12-degree weather don't help.
And snow.
Snow tomorrow. All right.
We do have the lights here, though, so that's a plus.
Sweet.
All right. Any other
comments on the reports? All right, minutes. All in favor? All righty. Doesn't look like we have any other reports. On to the tree assessment. Back to you. Yeah, poor trees.
Yeah, and I think we sent the report to you,
We
didn't we?
did.
Immediate concerns that he expressed with some of the dead that was in the top, and was concerned it could fall out and hit somebody. So we had just that work done. Nothing else has been done. When you read that, and I think the answer to these things, but there's a lot of work ahead. It is a little bit disturbing that the tree may not. It's going to be a lot. It reads to be a lot of work, and it's probably not going to be able to be saved in the end. And not that it has to
That's
come
the big
down.
oak, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. Not. I didn't read it to be that it. And talking to him, that it would be something that you necessarily had to take down tomorrow. Now, they were concerned about that if the middle had been hollow, but I think they decided that part was okay. But just the condition of the tree in general and some of the other things it's exhibiting, we can do some aggressive work to it to extend its life. But I think if you read in there, you'll see it suggesting that, 5 or 10 years, and you could be thousands of dollars for that. And again, in no way am I suggesting that we should just remove the tree tomorrow. But I'm just saying, I think we need to look at that close. I think the magnolias in general were reasonably healthy. There's some pruning stuff needs to be done, makes sense. I think the two trees down on the end, one was maybe a maple and one was a pear tree of some kind. I think the recommendation was that they're probably better served without them. They're not good trees to have, and one's got quite a bit of damage, and the other one is I thought it was a Bradford pear, but I think he named some other pear. But you know how those are bad about splitting and breaking. I'm surprised that it's not split before now. And so he thought, just for concern about hitting somebody's car and some other things, that in your long-term plan that you might want to look at something different for that part.
I think it's one right behind you there.
That would have been too.
I was waiting on that.
I've been worried about these trees for a long time. So, but there's one, and I'm mixed up on my corners. But that is overlapping some of the cars, and I think it's one of those 3 or 4 that we could probably go on and get removed. But could we get some estimated, just ballpark, not lock it in, but just ballpark figures for how much?
Yeah, this report that we paid for is what sets up for somebody to tell you to come and do it, because we had a couple people come and they all had different ideas about what you ought to do or not do, and the price was all over the place, and we didn't feel that we knew how to direct them. So
Okay.
that was, and particularly everybody expressed concern that big tree needed to be looked at. And
But
so
maybe at
that was
least
done.
start on it in this year's budget with a.
Yeah, what we did by cutting this wood out, and then if there's something we can do in the spring that's minimal cost, I mean, I don't mind, because we want, I would assume everybody wants the grounds to be refreshed where it can, practically speaking, not millions of dollars to do it. So there's some simple things I think that we can go ahead and be working on. I know Mark Clanton and Highway Department has agreed to help us with some of that kind of just general work around here.
Now,
to
are
kind
they
of get
able to,
prep.
if we're going to take
To pay, my understanding is we have to pay somebody to do that, because the one tree that did get took down, the highway department does not actually have the equipment for it, and they use a third party to do it if they know they're going to take the tree down. But we can work that out, and I think he's got special rates and stuff with them and would extend that to us. That's how we got the one that was taken down.
And I think, as we kind of go through this process, because we've been kind of talking about it for 3 or 4 months now, are we wanting any replacements? Do we want to look at that to be able to kind of do that? And I think that goes into maybe considering for next year in the budget, because trees aren't cheap. But.
Yeah, and those are a couple of the trees that are suspect to be removed.
Yeah.
For sure. Anyway, because one's damaged really bad. The other one is that pear with somebody that's on the what I call the Murfreesboro, the north side.
Yeah.
So do you need any action from us tonight or?
Not unless you want something, if you feel like you've got something specific you want to drill down in on that report.
Yeah, I mean, I looked through it earlier this week, and basically, I mean, I know there's several that are in fair condition that they need going in 3 years, lose some of them. I think probably some of those we need to go ahead and, I mean, just like you're saying, we need to probably remove some of those that are not necessarily historical trees. They're just, ones that got planted, but.
And we can look and figure that out, particularly at budget time, if you want to target and just make a number. So we want to commit $2,000 a year to go toward refreshing of the grounds or something. No, it probably might not, but I'm just saying, just set an amount and then you just figure out the projects that would fall in it too.
And with our courthouse and property funds, we can utilize it out of that fund.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's how the tree, what work we did have done, again, because he said it was an immediate concern. So that was taken out of there. Correct.
Well, maybe as your conversations with this gentleman, are you going to continue those with him?
I will.
And maybe he may have some recommendations of what a cost would be yearly to do that.
Well, now we can get people willing to quote it, and then you decide what you want to do with it. So that was going to be my next phase, was to have then the people, he kind of referred to it as a prescription. He wrote the prescription, but somebody else will then quote what they would, and then that way you have some way to look at those then pick it.
I think once we get those, we'll have
that would be the natural progression, unless you know something in there that you guys particularly would want to go after first.
It's a foreign language. So, all right. Okay. Any new business?
Chairman, while we've got a second, and we're running kind of short on time.
That's all right.
Recently, the important the celebration is here for Bedford County and Shelbyville. Was wondering if there's something that we could do to maybe construct a letter of support for those elected officials who have represented us in the celebration, and just show our gratitude for their efforts to make the celebration what it is. I'll just run that by the committee.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I'd reached out to the celebration and asked some questions earlier this year because I had seen something that Marsha Blackburn had put out, and so I think that may be in line with what you're talking about.
Right.
So I think that, I mean, what does the committee think? I mean, I think the walking horse industry for us in this community is so imperative, and I think that that's a good idea to be able to show that support. Be able to do that and be able to kind of at least thank those leaders of, of that what they're doing and continuing to fight for us and continuing to support the walking.
Yeah. Right, exactly. That's why I'm saying to send that letter of appreciation, because they really did their work.
And I know there's some federal legislation right now that there's some turmoil between the Biden administration coming out and the Trump administration and so with several other, they've been kind of fighting for that. So I think all that could be included in that, just to say thank you for the support that they're doing for the walking horse industry. Right. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, just an idea.
All right. Anybody else think?
I'm good with it.
All right. Well, you want to put that in the form of a motion?
I'd make a motion to, and I guess we could send it to the commission maybe, to get all signatures on that letter and show our support for those lawmakers.
And are you willing to put that together?
Sure.
All right. So I have a motion on the floor to create a support letter. Second. Any discussion on that? All right. All in favor?
Yeah.
All righty. All right. Any other new business? Any announcements? The only thing I'd say is thank you for the different entities that came today to kind of speak on different projects. Appreciate y'all being here. I know it takes a lot out of your day. No other announcements?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry. Yes, sir.
We last at the commission meeting, we talked about having a study session on our wastewater project.
I appreciate you bringing that up.
And
don't forget.
We had overwhelming support to have the study session. And I think study session is an ideal way that we can discover and talk about things like Commissioner Ferris, and that's why I supported his suggestion on looking at this budget committee. And somehow it came to your committee, and you guys agreed to hear it, which is great. But we were going to do it tonight, but we changed it to the 28th. Is there, help me?
Yeah. So, anytime I went home and thought about it, and I feel like that the public needed some time to be able to be, if they wanted to be present, The other thing is as you know, getting a hold of some of these experts, their schedules are very tight. And so I wanted to make sure it was at least 2 weeks out to be able to give plenty of proper notice for those individuals. So for my schedule and many of the others on the committee, that was the time frame that would fit, as well as we have several experts that are going to be coming that night to discuss, kind of break down different sections of that. And so we just wanted to be able to give the public enough time. If they wanted to be present, I'll give them plenty of time to talk. As you seen the other night, we had several people that were very passionate about this, and I want to give them their opportunity as well during that. And I felt like that trying to.
Fine. As you go through this on the 28th, then based on you've talked to people, you're going to have people here. So do we have an agenda? I'm just trying to. I want to know what we're going to go. Do we have an agenda? Do
Yes,
we have a format?
I will be submitting an agenda to Suzanne. I'm waiting on a call back from 2 experts that are looking to be here. I want it to be extremely efficient. I want it to be very detailed into the actual document. So I have an individual that is specifically focused on wastewater and understanding.
Well, we're going to talk about waste. This is we're requesting.
I understand. Again, we're going to be talking about different pieces of this because unfortunately that document goes way deeper than just an authority. So with that, we're going to talk about a lot of different pieces that are associated with that. Mr. Fair kicked it back to me, and I feel like that now that we're going to have an opportunity in a study session, we're going to study the document, and we're going to study the pieces of the document. And so, again, I didn't create the document, but we're going to make sure that we thoroughly vet each piece of that because this committee is going to be tasked at the end of that to make a favorable or unfavorable recommendation back to the commission, and I want them to be as thoroughly informed as possible, as well as the public to be able to do that. We're not going to ram this through. We're going to take our time. We're going to go through it line by line, and we're going to make sure that that document is either recommended or not recommended.
What document? What document?
The wastewater authority document.
Okay, so we're asking for a wastewater and form this authority so that we can then create the authority. But we're not creating the authority. We're just asking for permission to do that.
Completely understand.
Okay. So I want everybody to understand that's out there thinking that we have had these discussions that we are building a wastewater plant and we're going to run water pipes through people's property through eminent domain is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is getting permission from the state to give us the specific permission so that we can then put our authority together as a team. So it's not like we're going to make a decision if we're going to have a wastewater authority at this special session or even at the commission meeting if we vote for it. All we're asking for is the permission so that we can start a discussion, so we can have workshops, so we can have a year-long process, however long it takes in there. Now, there's 2 reasons why this is critical that we do this. And one is our natural resource process with the governor's special order 109, it is specifically mentioning wastewater in there as a pollutant, as a contributor to the Duck River and the Duck River watershed. We're going to have to deal with wastewater eventually in our watershed sooner rather than later. And wastewater's most basic definition is it's been used and consequently contaminated. Just because it goes in the ground doesn't mean it's all crystal clear. It all migrates through the streams, through the tributaries, through the creeks, into the Duck River. And the governor is spending $100 million to put a plan together. And if we don't have an authority and if we don't have a plan, we're going to end up with their plan.
Yeah, and Mr. Vick, and I appreciate your passion on this, but it is not on the agenda for tonight. It is on the agenda for the 28th.
Great.
So
I just want to make sure
encourage you
we have a fair
absolutely.
hearing and everybody's out there and we have an agenda and it's not veering off into these crazy conspiracies that we've already built a waste plant.
Well, the commission put it in my lap to make sure, in this committee's lap, to be able to study it.
That's all I'm asking.
And I promise you
Fair
we'll
hearing.
study it. Thank
Great.
you. All right, motion to adjourn.
Yes.